Cooper's laugh echoed down the hallway, his feet pounding against the wood floors as Milo trotted behind, tail swishing. I'd just pulled the last tray of oatmeal cookies from the oven when Mina called from the living room. "Time to go, bud." He burst in a moment later, cheeks flushed, arms wrapped tight around Milo's neck. "Can he come with us?" he asked wide-eyed. "Please." I smiled gently and knelt beside them, brushing a leaf from Milo's ear. "Milo lives here, honey." That's when Mina stood brushing crumbs off her jeans. "He's been talking about that dog for weeks. It's all he wants now." She grabbed her keys and glanced at me. "Why don't you just let him have the dog, Mom?" I straightened slowly, one hand still resting on Milo's back. "Excuse me. He needs a buddy," she said. "Like that settled it. You live alone. It might be good for both of you." I looked down at Milo, who was now sitting calmly beside me. The leash looped loosely in my palm. His eyes met mine with that familiar, unshaken trust. "He's not going anywhere," I said. Cooper's lip trembled. Mina sighed and picked up his backpack. "It's just a dog, Mom. Just a dog." I didn't answer. Outside, I helped Cooper into his jacket while Mina waited by the car, tapping her phone. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. Milo watched from the porch, ears alert as they drove off. Inside, the house felt quieter than usual. I rinsed the cookie tray, wiped down the counter, then sat down beside Milo, who rested his head on my knee. I stroked the graying fur between his ears, listening to the soft rhythm of his breathing. I thought of the mornings we'd shared, the quiet coffee walks, the stormy nights when his body warmed my feet. I thought of what Mina had said. "It's just a dog." I closed my eyes for a moment and whispered, "No, you're not." I stood and opened the window. The air was cool still. Somewhere in the distance, a car turned at the corner. Mina didn't look back as she buckled Cooper into the back seat. He was still crying little hiccuped sobs that made my chest ache. Milo stood beside me on the porch, tail still, ears tilted forward like he understood something had shifted. "Say goodbye to Grandma," Mina called, but Cooper didn't respond. She shut the door and slid into the driver's seat without another word. I watched her pull out of the driveway, her brake lights flaring once before vanishing down the road. Inside, the pot pie from 2 nights ago sat half warm on my plate. I poked at the crust, then finally gave up and set it aside. Milo nudged my knee. I took the cue, grabbing his bowl and filling it slowly, listening to the familiar click of kibble against ceramic. I sat back down and pulled the small wooden box from the drawer beside me. Inside were a few saved notes, yellowed, frayed around the edges. One was folded in thirds, creased from years of opening and refolding. "Thank you for saving him. He saved us, too." Will had written it in his plain handwriting, nothing dramatic, just the truth. I had brought Milo home from the shelter the week after Will's first chemo session. Everyone said it was a strange time to get a dog, but Milo never left his side after that. He slept at Will's feet, kept him grounded during the worst days, and followed me from room to room after the house fell quiet for good. I traced the edges of the note with my thumb. Then I folded it back and placed it gently in the box. My phone buzzed on the counter. I didn't look at it right away. When I did, the screen read, "Mina, you were a bit cold today." I locked the screen without responding. Milo had curled up by the back door. I switched off the kitchen light and stood there a while, letting the stillness settle into the corners of the room. Tomorrow would come without apology. They showed up late Saturday morning. No text, no warning, just the sound of tires on gravel, and Mina's voice calling out, "We brought muffins." I opened the door and saw Cooper bolt past me without a word. He didn't look at me, didn't smile. He dropped to his knees beside Milo, wrapping his arms tight around his neck, like he'd been holding his breath all week. Milo stayed still, tail wagging gently. Mina walked in behind him, holding a bakery bag like it was some sort of peace offering. He's been a mess, she said. Tears every night. Refuses to focus at school. His teacher called me. She thinks it's separation anxiety. I raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. She glanced at Cooper, then leaned in, lowering her voice. He won't stop crying about that dog. He needs something stable. Something to bond with. You could visit. But this isn't working. I folded my arms. So now I'm the unstable one. Mina's jaw tightened. Don't twist it. I'm asking you seriously, just give him the dog. Milo looked up at me from the floor. Cooper had his face buried in Milo's fur, whispering something I couldn't hear. I kept my voice calm. No. Mina let out a short breath, sharp and annoyed. Fine, but don't expect us to come back anytime soon. She turned to gather Cooper, who clung harder to Milo. Say goodbye, she urged. He didn't move. Eventually, she pulled him away, half carrying him out the door as he sobbed. The muffins sat forgotten on the counter. I didn't walk them out. I stood in the hallway and watched the door close. Milo patted over and nudged my hand gently. I leaned down and kissed the top of his head. I'm not giving you away, I whispered. We sat together on the porch as their car backed down the driveway. The house was quiet again before the gravel dust had even settled. 3 weeks passed and no one came. No calls. No texts. My voicemail stayed empty, except for the usual pharmacy reminder and one wrong number asking for Daryl. The porch was still. Cooper used to leave his sneakers there, one always tilted on its side, one sock sticking out. I used to grumble and pick them up before Milo tripped on them. Now, the mat stayed clean. I didn't rush to fill the space. I let it settle. The quiet didn't bite like it used to. It didn't remind me of what was missing. It reminded me of what I still had. On Wednesday, I took Milo to the vet for his routine visit. He trotted in like he owned the place. The vet, a kind young woman with soft hands and a steady voice, scratched his ears and said, "He's a lucky old guy." I smiled. I'm the lucky one. She ran her tests, checked his joints, his eyes, his breath, all steady. A little arthritis, but nothing unexpected. Keep doing whatever you're doing, she said. On the drive home, Milo laid his head on the back seat like he always did, eyes half closed, trusting me with the road. That night I sat by the window with a cup of peppermint tea looking out into the yard. The wind moved through the bare branches, soft and slow. I pulled the old spiral-bound journal from the drawer and opened it. The last entry was from months ago. Milo sniffed at the maple tree this morning, like he remembered something I didn't. Maybe dogs have longer memories than people, or kinder ones. I clicked my pen and wrote a new line. Nothing profound. Just that the tea was warm, the dog was snoring, and the house didn't feel as hollow as it used to. Milo stirred in his bed by the heater. I watched him for a while before turning off the light. The quiet stayed with me as I climbed into bed, familiar now like a guest who no longer needed to knock. The knock came just after 10. I opened the door to see Mina holding Cooper by the shoulders like he might float away if she let go. I have errands, she said quickly. Just for a few hours. He's been asking. She didn't meet my eyes. I'll be back by lunch. Then she was gone. Cooper didn't say a word at first. He walked past me straight to Milo, dropping to the floor and wrapping both arms around him. Milo licked his cheek, once then rested his head against Cooper's chest like nothing had ever happened. I made toast and set a plate out, but Cooper didn't touch it. He sat beside Milo like he was afraid to blink. After a while, he finally spoke. "Grandma," he said, voice small, "if you loved me, you'd give him to me." I didn't respond right away. I took a breath, crouched down beside them, and brushed a strand of hair from his forehead. "Do you still sleep with your stuffed turtle?" I asked softly. He looked surprised, then nodded. "Mr. Waffles? What if someone came in and said, You'll be fine without him. You can visit sometimes. And then they took him away. Would that feel okay? His face scrunched up. He shook his head slowly. No. I'd cry. Yeah, I said. I would too. He stayed quiet after that, his hand resting on Milo's back. I sat beside them, the three of us on the floor in the middle of the living room. An hour passed that way. No cartoons, no toys, no noise. Just a boy and a dog and a woman who had learned not everything had to be explained to be understood. When Mina came back, she looked at Cooper curled up with Milo and frowned just slightly. Ready to go, she asked. Cooper kissed Milo's head. Bye, boy. I'll come back soon. And for the first time in a long time, I believed him. The next time Mina came, it was just for pickup. Cooper ran ahead to hug Milo, his small hands cupping the dog's graying muzzle. I told my teacher Milo helps me breathe better, he said proudly. He's Grandma's dog. He doesn't want to leave. Mina stood at the doorway, arms crossed, her purse still hanging off one shoulder. Glad he's learning empathy, she said, her smile thin and not quite reaching her eyes. I didn't respond. I just handed Cooper his backpack and said I'd saved him a muffin for later. After they left, I made tea. Milo settled beside my chair as always. I didn't feel angry, just tired. Tired of being framed as the obstacle, the one too attached, too rigid, too much. My phone buzzed later that night. Mina, it's still weird you wouldn't give him to your grandson. Just saying. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then tapped delete. No reply. No need. There were envelopes on the kitchen table I hadn't gone through yet, mostly catalogs and utility bills. But one had a local address I didn't recognize. I slid it open and pulled out a short form and a letter. The school district was looking for volunteer therapy dogs for their elementary reading program. Milo had once comforted Will through his worst nights. Now he might comfort a child through their first book. I reached for a pen. Somewhere between date of birth and vaccination records, I paused to look at Milo, who had shifted to lie on my feet, warming them like always. I filled out the rest of the form. No fanfare. No announcement. Just a quiet decision to offer him where he was truly seen. I slipped the form into the return envelope, sealed it, and placed it by the door. In the morning, we'd drop it off on our walk. The library smelled like old paper and lemon floor cleaner. Children sat on small beanbags, books in their laps, voices soft and unsure. And right in the middle of it all, Milo, calm, steady, and perfectly still. They paired him with a girl named Natalie, no older than 7. She didn't make eye contact when we met, just kept her gaze locked on the floor. But when she sat beside Milo and opened her book, something shifted. She leaned closer and whispered. Once upon a time, her voice barely a breeze. Milo didn't move, just let her read his tale, thumping once when she turned a page. I stood near the back, hands folded, watching her shoulders relax. The words came slowly at first, but then with rhythm. Confidence, even. She reached out halfway through and rested a hand on his back like she'd always known him. A volunteer walked over and stood beside me. He makes them feel safe, she said softly. I nodded. He's always done that. She smiled, then moved on to help a boy struggling with phonics. I stayed until Natalie finished her story. When she closed the book, she whispered, "Thanks, Milo," like it was a secret between them. He gave a quiet snort in return. On the walk home, Milo had a new bounce in his step. I think he knew. Or maybe he just liked the extra attention. Either way, we stopped at the pet store on the corner. I bought him a new collar, deep forest green, stitched strong with gold thread embroidered along the edge. Mercer family. That night, I laid the old collar in a box with Will's note and a few worn photos. Milo's new one fit perfectly. I ran my fingers over the stitching. He curled up by the couch while I folded laundry and hummed to myself. No noise, no tension. Just the hum of a house where something meaningful had happened. The next morning, the birthday card arrived. The morning started like any other. I fed Milo, swept the porch, and poured my coffee into the mug with the chipped rim, my favorite one, because it never pretended to be perfect. It was my birthday. Not a milestone, just another number. No message from Mina. No missed calls. I'd stopped expecting them, really. It stung less that way. I peeled peaches slowly at the counter, letting the juice run over my fingers. The cobbler went into the oven, filling the house with warmth and cinnamon. Milo waited by the back door like he knew we'd be celebrating just us two. When it was done, I took 2 plates outside, one for me, one with a small spoonful for him. We sat on the back step, the evening light turning the grass soft gold. Milo wagged his tail as he ate, careful and slow, like always. The mailman came around the side gate holding a few envelopes. "You two always look peaceful," he said, handing them over. I smiled. "We've earned it." He tipped his cap and moved on. Most of the mail was junk. One was a catalog I hadn't requested. But after dark, as I was locking up, something slid under the door with the soft scrape of paper on wood. I bent down and picked it up. Construction paper folded in half. Crayon scribbles across the front, red and green and blue, uneven, and rushed. Inside, "Happy birthday, Grandma. Milo says hi. I miss you." No name, no return address. But I knew the handwriting, the loops on the G, the way the M in Milo leaned to the side like it was tipping over. I traced the letters with my fingertip, then tucked the card onto the mantel beside the photograph of Will in his garden boots, holding a basket of tomatoes. Milo sighed from his spot near the heater, stretching out one paw. I sat beside him, resting my back against the wall. Outside, the night was still. Then headlights blinked once through the front window. It was barely past 8 when I heard footsteps on the gravel, fast, uneven ones. I opened the door, and there he was. Cooper, arms full, cheeks flushed, cradling a tiny dog wrapped in a worn towel. "This is Jellybean," he said, like it was the most important name in the world. "She's mine. I adopted her." Behind him, Mina stood near the gate hands in her coat pockets. She didn't come closer, but she didn't leave either. "He saved his allowance," she called, almost sheepishly. "Used it for the adoption fees. He's been walking neighbor dogs all month." She paused. "He wanted to show you first." Cooper stepped inside and set Jellybean down gently. The pup's ears perked her tail a nervous flick. Milo patted over slowly, giving a soft huff as he sniffed her. She held still, then gave one quick lick to Milo's chin. Cooper beamed. "I think she likes him." We all drifted out to the porch. Cooper sat on the step, Jellybean curled in his lap. Milo stretched beside them, calm as a summer cloud. I sat in my chair, watching the 2 dogs press together like they'd always known each other. Mina didn't speak. She sat on the railing, staring out at the yard. Her face held no apology, but it didn't hold judgment either. Just stillness. The wind picked up a little, carrying the scent of dry leaves and something softer I couldn't name. No one said much. We didn't need to. Cooper looked up. "Do you think Milo would want to teach Jellybean how to be good?" I smiled. "I think he already is." He leaned against me for just a second, then returned to stroking Jellybean's ears. She'd fallen asleep in his arms, belly exposed, fully trusting. Milo rested his head on Cooper's shoe. I glanced over at Mina. Her eyes were on the boy, not the dog. She gave a tiny nod. We stayed there like that, the 4 of us and 2 quiet hearts with paws. Later, when I came back out with lemonade, Cooper had begun telling Jellybean a story. The living room looks a little different now. There are 2 dog beds side by side, one slightly bigger than the other. Milo still claims the old one flattened from years of naps and winter nights. Jellybean curls into the smaller one, though most days she ends up halfway across Milo's anyway. Cooper visits every Saturday, without fail. No announcements, no fanfare. He just shows up with a backpack full of books, a few crumbled dog biscuits, and a story he can't wait to tell. Sometimes he reads aloud to both dogs. Other times he plays fetch in the yard while I sit on the porch, sipping coffee, letting his laughter fill the space that used to feel too quiet. Milo trots along slowly, still game for a chase, while Jellybean darts like a blur of joy across the grass. Mina comes too, though not every time. She doesn't make excuses. She wipes down the counter after Cooper's made a mess of peanut butter crackers. She asks if I want anything from the store. She comments on the weather. She doesn't say sorry. But she also hasn't brought up Milo again. And maybe that's enough. Today, after the house quieted down and they'd gone home, I sat on the floor beside Milo. He lifted his head, eyes cloudy but still sharp in the way that matters. I scratched behind his ears the way he likes. "You did good, old man," I said. "You taught him more than any of us could." Jellybean nudged closer and let out a sigh, settling in beside him. I leaned back and let the quiet return, not the kind that isolates, but the kind that wraps around you like a soft sweater. Nothing had been taken, nothing given away, but something had shifted. Now, in the stillness of this room, with two hearts curled at my feet and the echo of a child's laughter still lingering in the air, I knew some things stay because they're meant to.